Hello, everybody, and welcome to our COVID-19 update. I'm Michael Cimino, and I've got Anthony Cimino joining me here today from Inner Real Estate. Look, today just a brief session to provide a bit of an update on the announcement that was made yesterday by Premier Daniel Andrews around around Melbourne metropolitan region being placed into lockdown as of midnight tonight for a period of 6 weeks. We thought it'd be pertinent to obviously provide everybody with an update on what we're seeing, what the next 6 weeks will mean for, I suppose, for us as a business, as well as all of our clients, whether you be landlords, tenants, or owners corporation management clients as well. And obviously talk a little bit about how we're going to be dealing with certain things over the course of the next 6 weeks. I suppose, on the outset, when we first heard the announcement yesterday, we probably weren't entirely shocked. There was probably a little bit of discussion within our own office that it seemed as though it was going that way, particularly given that we'd had a few postcodes that had already gone into lockdown. So we were certainly prepared for it. And look, thankfully over the last 4 or 5 months it's been now since the first come into place, we've obviously applied a significant amount of learnings, and we hadn't actually returned to work completely from working from the office. So we were working remotely. So the change, whilst it is a small hindrance, it's not something that we weren't prepared for, and certainly not something that we're overly concerned about either. We're certainly able to kind of take it in our strides, I suppose, and just adjust and certainly apply some of the learnings that like I said, that we've experienced over the last couple of months. So just in terms of a bit of a, I suppose, a rundown on what it means from our office perspective. So our office will continue to be open by private appointment. That hasn't changed for a number of months now. So essentially since the end of March, early April, our office was never closed. We're always open by appointment. That will continue over the course of the next 6 weeks. Obviously, access to the office will be restricted. We'll only be inviting people in that need to be in, so meeting those essential services requirements. So, if you're a tenant returning keys that you can't return, say, to a property manager on site, then we'll be doing that in our office. If there's an urgent reason for coming into the office, or there's an essential reason for coming into the office, then you can arrange an appointment to do that. And if there's a urgent delivery or something that needs to be made to the office here as well, we'll be doing that. But obviously it'll be quite limited in terms of access. The team will revert back to working from home. We were working from home during the shutdown period, but we were, I suppose, becoming used to working in our 2-team environment. So I think we touched on in a previous update around the fact that we had an A team and a B team, or a blue team and an orange team, I think they were. So we had myself as Monday, Wednesday, Friday, today being one of those, working from the office. And Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday was our other team working from home. So we'll continue working in those 2 teams, but I suppose where it was a working from the office first and then working from home where you need to, we're reverting back to working from home where you need to, and then coming into the office only where it's necessary. So again, it's not too much of an adjustment for us. We're all thankfully set up to work remotely, which is great. A lot of us have kind of been working from our cars and things anyway for the last couple of months. So we'll continue to do that. And the team will certainly always be there and contactable as well. So calling the office number, sending emails, we're able to respond to those virtually instantly. If we're not, then we certainly get back to you as soon as possible. So no, that's about it from, I suppose, an office perspective. Anthony, we might touch a little bit on the sales side to begin with, and what the next 6 weeks will look like in sales.
Yeah, hi Mike. It's going to be a bit of a back to normal, right, isn't it? It's sort of we got the open for inspections back for a little while, and now we've sort of lost that again, which didn't change too much, and it's not going to change, I guess, a lot from us. We still hadn't conducted midweek open for inspections yet. We're still doing private inspections on all our sale properties. We just found that was a really effective use of time during the first shutdown, and we sort of were getting some really good results and really good feedback from that. And our sales team was really enjoying the one-on-one interaction with buyers and being able to sort of spend a bit more time with them and go through their needs and what they're after, and sort of allowing them the opportunity to really see the property. So I guess it doesn't change too much. All it does is it removes our open for inspections on a Saturday, but basically we'll be running around on Saturday, opening properties privately. We've communicated with all our vendors last night and today that it's not the end of campaigns. It's all still going to be pushing ahead, and we still remain pretty positive and confident that we'll be able to get results during this period. I think there's obviously going to be a bit of a there's going to be some caution and sort of retraction in the market maybe in the first couple of weeks again, of just people not knowing and a bit of uncertainty that'll creep in, but that will sort of, I guess, dissipate over the first week or so. But yeah, look, we are launching 3 new properties to market on Monday next week. One of those being 2 of those being in auction properties, which we're still pushing ahead with. We're not sort of changing campaigns or strategies on any of those. We are still pushing ahead with that. I've been in discussions today with some online auction companies and just sort of finalising the last little details with that. So all those auctions will now just be converted to online, and with the aim of, if we are to get offers prior to sell them before auction as we normally do. So look, not too much will change. It'll just be a lot of more hard yards and as we've sort of been doing, long days, long nights, and to get the right results for our clients.
Yeah, and just on that as well, obviously having online auctions does open up to a wider customer base. Obviously, you've got the rest of the country, luckily for them, that aren't having to go back into lockdown. So, people from interstate can certainly still transact on properties here in Australia, in Melbourne. So, there's nothing stopping them from doing that. If anything, I suppose the way we're operating at the moment probably just facilitates that process a little bit easier and makes it easier for them to purchase. Particularly, you're talking about some of those online auction platforms that we're looking at taking on over the course of the next couple of weeks. That will just make it easier, I suppose, for people that are remote to be able to dial into those auctions and participate as well.
Yeah, definitely. We're also just in the process of changing how our contracts are done as well, so signing contracts digitally as well now. We were doing them through DocuSign, but we've found that there's a program that will be able to facilitate that a little bit better. So we've just jumped on board on that last week. So that'll be we'll be rolling that out over the next week and the week after. So yeah, we're just making sure that we've got everything sort of covered, working remotely. So half our sales team will be in on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then I'll be in the office Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, but working not remotely from home. I'm working from our old premises at the moment. That's sort of, you can probably see the old painting next to me, but just in here at the moment. So just making sure that for convenience of being able to access into the city and out of the city, just a little bit better and more efficient with time. So yeah, I guess we've been through it once before, and I think we really thrived through the last sort of shutdown. So going back into this, for us, I don't think it's going to be too detrimental to us. I think we were able to adapt and innovate during the first one, and I think we'll just go back to what we were doing there, and I think it'll just be the new normal. I think we're all expecting a bit of this sort of happen if there was going to be a second wave, which looks like there is, but it's out of our control. We can only control what we can do, and that's make sure that we're booking those inspections and getting those buyers through the properties and getting results.
Yeah, no, agreed. If anything, I suppose it's it's given us an opportunity to kind of hone in those skills a little bit and kind of concentrate on them and make I suppose some of the things that we did the first time around even that little bit better. So so it'd be good. I think probably a good learning experience for us as well.
100%. Sorry, go on.
That's right. I was going to touch on property management. You might have asked.
That's what I was going to ask you that. I was going to exactly go into that. So I was just going to sort of touch on tenants first and ask you sort of the changes that have come in, or the announcement that Andrew's made yesterday. What does that sort of how is that going to affect tenants moving, inspecting properties, doing all those sorts of things?
Yeah, so look, on the tenant side, there won't be any restrictions on moving, similar to the last change that happened. So if you are moving into a property that we've recently leased and you signed a contract on that, there's certainly no reason why your removalists wouldn't be able to do it. It's still considered an essential service, so moving home. Obviously just making sure that you're taking extra precaution there, and employing the right people so that you can make sure that you've got the right process and they've got the right protocols in place to maintain safety. If you do need details of anybody like that, more than happy for you to reach out to us, and we'd more than happily provide some details to some companies that we know can do that safely. With I suppose tenants that are in that that mid period where they might have given notice on their property. So some of our tenants that might have given notice on their property, we've had a couple of phone calls to the office today as well, where they haven't quite secured something yet and they're feeling a little bit uncertain about leaving now. Don't feel bad about withdrawing your notice to vacate. At the moment, similar to when we went into the first period of lockdown, don't feel as though you can't withdraw your notice to vacate. There's nothing stopping that from happening, unless the property's already been leased. If the property's been leased, obviously we'd have to proceed with the new tenancy. But if we haven't yet leased the property and the property's just being marketed, perhaps reach out to your property manager, and especially if you haven't secured something already to move into, reach out to your property manager and see if there's a potential there to extend it or maybe even delay any vacate. Our landlords have been very accommodating up until now, and I don't think it would be an issue if you wanted to delay a vacate for the current circumstances. So I'd encourage you to reach out to your property manager and see if that's a possibility. Because I know, like I said, we had a couple of phone calls to the office this morning. People just concerned that they've given notice. They've got 2 or 3 weeks to try and find something, but they don't particularly want to be out there looking at things. They'd rather just be in the safety of their own home. So there's nothing stopping that from happening, like I said, unless the property's already been leased. But certainly engage with your property manager and see if it's a possibility, and then we'll obviously go from there. The other thing as well, if you are looking for a property, so if you've inquired on one of the properties that we've got available, or you're looking at leasing a property we've currently got available, the process that we have implemented, which is similar to the process that we implemented right at the start of the lockdowns back in March, April, is back to I suppose doing what you can remotely first, and then physically inspecting the property. So again, we're concerned about your safety. We're concerned about our team's safety. So we're trying to remove the number of physical inspections as possible. So it's an opportunity to kind of, I suppose, qualify somebody before they actually come through the property. So the process that we're following and that we've re-implemented is that we request that you look at the property online. You watch the walkthrough video. So we checked this morning, about 90% of the properties we've got marked at the moment have walkthrough videos. If there isn't a walkthrough video, send through an inquiry and we'll certainly get one put up very quickly. We've got actually all the property managers out there today recording videos of ones that we haven't already done, so that way we can upload them online. So view the property online, have a look at the photos, have a look at the walkthrough video, which will be a current walkthrough video because we have recorded them over the course of the last couple of months. If the property meets your requirements based on the advertisement and the walkthrough video, submit an application for the property, or at least submit an inquiry. So contact us, let us know that you're interested in the property. From there, we can advise whether at that point in time it's worthwhile coming through for a visual inspection, or if you're comfortable just based on the video, we're happy to accept an application, process that, seek an approval from the landlord, and then before you make final payment, take you through for a quick viewing of the property. If you'd rather view the property on your own, we can always make keys available too. There'll be a small deposit payable and just for security, but you can certainly come and collect the keys, view the property, and then submit and then make payment and finalise the tenancy at that point. But we're trying to make it, I suppose, as simple as possible and as safe as possible for everybody involved. The private inspections, similar to sales, the way we're conducting private inspections is that there will only be one person allowed at each inspection, or 2 people if they're from the same household. If that occurs, our agents, we've had plenty of practice over the last few months, but we will either stand in the corridor or in an open space in the property, allow you to inspect the property. You'll be offered hand sanitizer, which we kindly ask that you use before you walk into the property, just again, more as a precaution to make sure that if you're touching surfaces that, if there's any risk of passing on any infection, that's mitigated. And then you'll be handed a inspection card, which shouldn't be physically handed to you. We'll leave those on the bench as well. So again, just minimising any of those kind of physical touch points that we possibly can, just to try and maintain distance and do our bit to try and stop the spread of this thing. So Yeah, so that's from a tenant perspective. That's how we'll be operating.
That's a good point as well. So we'll be doing the same thing with sales. So hand sanitizer on site. We may even stop the handing out of brochures for the time being. Just have them on the kitchen table for people to click on if they're wanting to. But that's something that we'll be doing. Similar sort of thing. We'll be uploading walkthrough videos. A lot of our properties have actually got 3D tours on there that our photographer is that do. So it's a bit like a 3D virtual tour walkthrough. So we ask that buyers look at that first before sort of making inquiry to inspect. But happy to then arrange inspections after that. And also, again, minimum one person at a time, unless it's two people from the same household. And we're allowing sort of 10 to 15 minutes per private inspection. We're also just making sure that if the property is tenanted, that no services are touched, that we will open up any cupboards or any doors that a prospective buyer is wanting to look at, and understanding that there is people still living in the property. So we want to make sure that their safety is key, and making sure that they're not in the property either. They sort of go out, they leave the property for one of the 4 reasons that stage 3 lockdown warrants you to leave the house for. Michael, just with is that for all sort of tenant updates? Is there anything else you sort of wanted to touch on, cover off?
Yeah, no. So just just one more point, and similar to your point there as well in terms of reasons to leave. There was a bit of confusion last time around during the last sort of lockdowns around asking people to leave the property for inspections, and that goes for both rental and sales opens. It was clarified through the last lockdown that we can request a tenant to leave the property, whether it be for a sale or a rental open for inspection, and also an owner occupier for that matter as well. They just need to, I suppose, adhere to one of the 4 reasons to leave. The 2 most common reasons that people would leave their property during an open for inspection was 1, to either exercise, or 2, to go to the shops to purchase essential services or essential items. So so there's that has been clarified, and thankfully, I suppose again it's another learning that we went through last time around that we've been able to apply this time around quite quickly, and it's quite clear on what needs to be followed and how we need to go about that.
Yeah, and just for landlords as well, just sort of giving a bit of an update. Obviously, last time we've sort of touched on it and spoken to a couple of these information items regarding the landlords, but just with them moving forward, any sort of changes and any effects with that?
No, so look, from a landlord perspective, there shouldn't really be too much of a difference. Our landlords shouldn't really notice any difference in the way we operate or the way we deal with them at all over the next 6 weeks. We're still all contactable, like I mentioned at the very beginning, via email or the office number. We're still all contactable through our phones. I've been for the landlords that have called the office number looking for me, they've often come through to me in my car because that's how the phone's calls are usually transferred through to my mobile. But that's that will continue. Obviously, we'll still have the phone answered and transferred to either the respective property manager or Anthony or I or anybody else in the office for that matter. Rents will still be processed daily, similar to the way they are at the moment. So there's no change to that. We are still opening vacant properties by appointment. So again, we had a bit of a discussion about it as a team this morning and said that that process hasn't really changed. We've been conducting open for inspections on weekends now for, I couldn't tell you how many weeks, probably 7 or 8 weeks now since we've been able to do open for inspections again. And I can't say that open for inspections have been, particularly the weekend ones, have been more successful than the private inspections that we've been holding midweek. So being restricted to do private inspections again is not necessarily a bad thing. It changes the way in which we deal with our clients and the way we're meeting new tenants. Obviously, it's not as simple as just uploading a time online and waiting for someone to rock up in an open for inspection. It's it's a little bit more complicated than that. But like I said, we've been quite successful in organising private inspections and taking people through throughout this whole period since the start of March, and it's been that has been by far the most successful method of leasing properties anyway. So we were going through that process. All it does is just essentially remove our one tool from our arsenal, which is being able to do an open for inspection on a Saturday. But by any means, I don't think it will it will stop us or prevent us from leasing properties. I know there's been a bit of a mad rush by some of the guys out there today, going and opening properties and trying to get through some properties with larger groups. I was just in the office earlier, and there was one of the girls here mentioned that they had an open for inspection with 10 groups of people through. So there's obviously still interest there, and there's obviously still people wanting to come through properties. So if that's there, there's obviously going to be a demand for people still leasing. So we're just going to make sure that every phone call we receive, every email we receive as an inquiry on a property, we follow up and just make sure we follow that process, and it will be successful off the back of that.
I think people are going to be more accustomed to the fact that we've survived a lockdown already. So to do it again, it's not going to be too much of a difference, and it's not a huge shock to the system. I remember last time that it was announced that there was that stage 3 lockdown and things were basically shutting down, we saw inquiries for sales completely drop off. We probably wouldn't have seen an inquiry for a couple of, probably a week on our properties. But interestingly enough, last night we received 6 new inquiries on properties through realestate.com and Domain. So there's still people actively looking. There's been a couple of conversations that we've had this morning with buyers that were interested in other properties that have just maybe taken the foot off the accelerator a little bit and just wanting to wait to see what happens, which is always going to happen. But that number of inquiries still filtering through and still happening. So I think people are a bit more attuned to what's, they understand that we've been through it before. We'll get through this as like we did last time. And if they've still got a need to move, whether that's to lease a new property or to purchase to move into, that's still going to happen.
Yeah, that's right. And one other thing I did want to touch on as well was I think it's not a bad thing that we've actually gone into full lockdown as a state. We saw some, and I had some conversations with landlords earlier in the week and late last week around some of the lockdowns that had been imposed on particular suburbs and postcodes in Melbourne. And in my view, what had happened there was, unfortunately, by closing off particular suburbs, you created a certain stigma about certain areas. And we noticed that there was tenants that would have potentially been looking in those areas that actually redirected their search to come and look in, I suppose, in a CBD. So moving out of, say, North Melbourne and moving into the CBD because they didn't want to be, partly they don't want to be in that suburb that had that kind of stigma associated with it, but also, who would want to go and lease a property that is in an area where you knew that you were going to be in lockdown for a period of at least 4 weeks? Whereas now that it's not statewide, but it's whole of Melbourne Metro, it does remove a little bit of that limitation. So it's like, well, even if you do lease a property, whether it be North Melbourne or South Melbourne or maybe Melbourne CBD or South Bank, the same restrictions apply. So you don't have that detraction from a particular area because of a restriction that's been imposed. So from that perspective, I think it's probably a good thing that that's Melbourne Metro wide. Obviously, it's not great because we are limited to our homes and we can't do those things like we were talking about a couple of weeks ago in the call about going to your favourite restaurant or your favourite cafe and sitting down. But hopefully in 6 weeks' time we can again. So we just got to look at the positives of it.
Might be a lot of people moving out of Metro Melbourne into regional areas. Could move to Wood End. I know they're not in lockdown, so there might be a bit of a rush of people leasing and buying properties up there to get out of Metro Melbourne.
Well, that's a possibility too. But I think, like I said, we haven't certainly seen any change in people looking in our market, and I think it's slightly different marketplaces. Not North Melbourne to South Melbourne. It's it's a pretty significant change.
It's very significant.
Yeah. And look, just the last thing I wanted to touch on was around the owners corporation stuff as well. So Anthony, as Anthony mentioned, obviously, that's the, I suppose, the third area of the business, fairly young area of the business for us. We've been operating in that space for about 12 months now. We've seen, I suppose, from some of our competitors, some of the communications that have been coming out over the past few months, saying that, things like AGMs and SGMs have been put off because of coronavirus and, because of face-to-face meetings and social distancing restrictions, meetings couldn't be held and a whole bunch of, I suppose, reasons why certain things couldn't go ahead. From our perspective, it's business as usual. Our meetings are still being conducted. We held a We held an SGM during hard lockdown. We've got some AGMs scheduled. They're coming up soon because obviously end of financial year now, so they're starting to be scheduled. They'll be sent out, and we'll organise those quite easily. There's no concerns about that. We've actually just upgraded the conferencing facility in our boardroom, so we can have if and when we can actually start meeting face to face, we can comfortably socially distance in here and still have multiple people dial into calls and dial into meetings as if you're attending the physical meeting. And that was one thing that similar to the online auctions that Anthony was speaking about earlier. We're looking at it going, well, this is an opportunity now for us to, I suppose, lead the market when it comes to that technology offering that's going to be able to assist our clients and operate in a normal environment in what we've come to expect as the new normal, as everybody calls it. So all meetings still going ahead. There certainly won't be any delays. So if there's a meeting scheduled to occur, that won't be affected by this 6-week lockdown or any other lockdown or any other restriction that's been imposed on us after the fact. And from the I suppose the building perspective, there's been a little bit of commentary this week. And after the towers there in North Melbourne and Kensington were locked down, around what are I suppose owners corporations doing and what are buildings doing about maintaining safety within buildings. The majority of the contractors that we use have come to us already with COVID safe plans and ways that they're dealing with it, particularly facilities managers and cleaning contractors. And they're putting in place, certain measures to make sure that obviously they maintain safety of the building. So, and again, this has been going on for the last few months, but making sure that all high touch surfaces are disinfected regularly. So at every clean, so if the building's clean, say 3 days a week, all high touch surfaces will be wiped down with a disinfectant. So that might be a building entrance panel to all the lift buttons to an entry door if it needs to be touched, or the swipe pass panel. Anything that is a risk of someone physically touching it and a risk of, I suppose, any virus being transmitted on that surface is wiped down with disinfectant in every clean. We've got cleaners that are using cloths once at a site and then disposing of them so that they're not carrying them from site to site and risk bringing virus from one site to the other. The majority of the cleaners were doing this already anyway, but wearing face masks and protective equipment as well. So obviously they're protecting themselves so they don't get infected and then subsequently pass it on to other people as well while they're cleaning. So they're the sorts of measures that have been put in place. We have, through our community portals, started to publicise some of the details around what the facilities managers and cleaners are doing to help minimise the risk of spread within buildings, but always open to more suggestions. So if there's any other comments out there from people that that have seen certain things or seen things that we've not seen in buildings that we're operating in, we'd obviously welcome the feedback too. So, obviously there's always, these things can always be improved on, similar to what we're going through at the moment. If there's something that a particular building's doing that you're not seeing in your building, then we're certainly open to it and happy to present it to the committee for review and approval. Yeah. Perfect. All right, Anthony, anything else from your end at all?
No, nothing from mine. Just make sure everyone sort of keeps safe through this time. Make sure that you look after yourselves and your loved ones. Thank you everyone for your continued support through this. I know you've just popped up our contact details up on screen. So if there's any sort of questions you've got, feel free to send us through an email, give us a call on the mobile at any time. I'm more than happy to have a conversation, whether that be sales, rentals, owners corporation. Happy to, Michael and I are happy to take the call at any time. But thank you so much everyone for tuning in and being part of today's little COVID update. And I'm sure that over the course of the next 6 weeks, we'll probably come to you again with another update of just what's been sort of happening. But thank you once again, Michael. Thank you for your time, and we'll no doubt chat soon.
Thanks to everybody. Thank you.
Bye.